Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Invisible Obvious podcast, a place for curiosity conversations to explore the impact of actions or inactions that affect our daily lives. Today, I'm really happy to welcome a longtime friend. First, I guess, say I'm your host, Daniel Paulus. We're going to talk with Marc Robin, who we have known each other for almost 40 years now, which is pretty remarkable. And it's been such a pleasure to witness his growth, his experience, everything that he's been able to accomplish in theater in particular. So I want Marc to speak about his experience from that angle as it relates to this conversation I'm trying to hold. So Marc, I let everybody kind of introduce themselves. I'm always interested to hear how you talk about how you got to the place you're at right now. So start us off that way.
Sure. Well, first, thanks for letting me be on this. This is actually really flattering and kind of cool. I don't do these often. I've been lucky enough to know you almost my entire life. And so we've watched how the world of theater has journeyed, so to speak, over those past 4 decades, and what it used to be, what it is now, how to navigate what it is now. But most importantly for me, I've been in the arts my whole life. I started at 4 years old as the back end of the cow. As Toto. I got my equity card as the back end of the cow. I only play small animals, but I've sort of been in the entire industry in evolution, every place you can be, kind of throughout the journey, and so it's all I've really ever known. I've done survival jobs, obviously, the sort of waitering gigs, which I also enjoyed because of the people. But for the most part, this is the world that I've known my whole life, and certainly as long as you've known me. And I feel really lucky and blessed to actually be in this position at this particular theater. I'm the producer at the Fulton Theater now. And to sort of put all of the tools together that I've been exposed to my entire life. But the world has changed. The industry of theater has changed. And, obviously, from the standpoint of, this conversation, there's the two very strong components of the world in which I live, show and business. The show part is what makes the business part fun. And the business part is what supports the show part, which is what the audiences engage with. So I kind of get the really awesome task of balancing those all the time. So I'm happy to answer whatever you want as it pertains to that world.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to explain it, because you have been a performer to start, but a director for many years now. And you are probably the most prolific creative person I know, just in terms of the sheer number of projects you've worked on. I know you were interviewed recently. What's the ballpark in your head of the number of productions you've led over the years?
Well, I just recently had to put my resume together for an artistic team for projects that I'm currently possible. And it's over 450 shows between, main stage, children's theater, industrials. But as far as like actual, start to finish musicals or fully vetted plays, it's around 300.
Which is amazing. I mean, how many people get an opportunity to work on that many projects in their lifetime, right? But what I love about you is you are a lifelong learner. You're someone that likes to build on your experiences. You have an incredible discipline about your work in terms of being prepared to go into a room and start to begin the process with actors and creative people. But you also love the kind of mystery of it, the creative process of it, right? So one of the first questions I ask people as it relates to this conversation is, what does integration mean to you? And another way of saying that, I guess, would be, how have you experienced greater self-awareness for yourself as a director, or helping actors get to that place? And then even now leading the Fulton as the producing artistic director, which is, as you said, a whole other job in and of itself.
That's a really big, hard question, because there's so many ways to come at it. I think everything starts, this sounds so queer, but I think everything starts with teamwork. I feel like it's always been my job when I've been in a leading position to make sure that I that I surround myself, because sometimes it's not just hiring, that I surround myself with the people that know more than I do, and that are willing to collaborate with me so that I can learn from the process. And integration of all the different aspects, because especially in theater, we're not just talking about, what's the budget, what's the break even, what's the accounts receivable or the payroll, expenditures as it pertains to the budget. It's also what's the artistic input, what's the artistic collaboration, how do you coordinate it? So I feel like throughout the years, because I've been really lucky to have been in so many different capacities as a performer and on the other side of the table, so to speak, I feel like my integration task is to listen to what everybody needs and then to help guide everybody on one road. I'll say to a company on the first day of rehearsal, hey, we're here and we want to get here. There's no right or wrong way on how we get there. It's just making sure that everybody, and this goes for marketing, development, box office, finance, actors, actresses, artists, musicians, and everybody all get here. Everybody's going to have a different version on how we integrate to get there. I just have to be prepared. You mentioned my preparedness, which is incredibly kind of you. But for me, if I'm not, I don't know how to keep everybody on the course. If not, we'll have 500 people trying to get to Disney World 1,400 ways.
Yeah, that's well said. And I think it's a challenge for leaders in general to set themselves up for success, right? You want to surround yourself with people that bring something to the table, that challenge you, so that you're not an unchallenged voice. You as the director have a vision that you're bringing to the table. You're rallying people around, right? But they still need to bring their very best selves, which what I love about the process. And we were talking a little bit before about this idea of creative conflict, right? Not everybody's there to agree with you in the process of finding the art, finding the message, finding the story, right? As a matter of fact, if that's happening, you're probably pretty darn bored and worried that something's not going very well, right? Because people are either phoning it in or they just don't care enough to want to advocate for a point of view to make the project better. What has been your experience with that?
It depends upon the situation, and every situation, every artist, every challenge is completely different. Sometimes it's motivated by, hey, look, I'm just here to do a job and I don't really buy into your vision. I don't care about your vision. I just want to come in and kickball change and take my paycheck and go home. I try not to surround myself with people like that. That doesn't always happen. As a matter of fact, for a fact that doesn't always happen. In those instances, I will do my best to try to inspire them or remind them, especially in the arts, that it's a privilege to be in the arts. There's thousands and thousands of people that would give, their right arm just to walk into a theater and be able to express themselves artistically. And if you're somebody who's in a rehearsal space where you're like, yeah, whatever, can you just shut up already? You're talking too much. Give me my choreography and go. I tend to look at that and go, well, thank you for allowing us to use your remarkable talent for this, but I don't see myself asking you to surround us again. But everybody's got their own reasons for why they do what they do. It's not just in theater, it's in your industry as well.
Yeah.
Some people, it is their job. I try not to look at the arts as anything that is even remotely a job. You know me, you've heard me say this for years.
Right.
I feel like it's a privilege, to be on stage and to work with artists. And I never want to take that for granted. But it's hard. There are times where I was like, okay, great. I get it. You don't sign onto this vision. No problem. But you still have to show up at this destination point. So what tools do I need to give you to get you to go there and to leave your nasty energy outside, and at least just show up and treat it as a job? And that doesn't always happen.
No, but I think you've been remarkably successful and intentional in that regard, having worked with so many people over the years, who can not only deliver for you in some tight timelines, because you're often forced to mount shows very quickly. You wish you had a lot more time to explore things, right? But there's only so much rehearsal time that's allotted for the production to happen and open. But you've developed a special relationship with some people that still want to go on that journey with you, even though you've known each other for years. It's the fun of being in that creative process, like I guess I said. And so tell me a little bit more, when I say creative conflict, what does that mean to you? Because I think of it as a very positive thing. And I think in business, people get very skittish about speaking up for their perspective because they think a couple of things. They're gonna seem argumentative to their superior. They're going to seem like their idea is not a very good idea, and so it's dismissed, or they don't have any ideas, right? And in this landscape of a communication world where all ideas want to be weighed equally, as we know in kind of the current work style and the generational communication style that's happening, how do you navigate that so it's fun and productive for the end product for the show?
Well, we're putting on plays,
Right,
so
right,
it's 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 inherently already a cool thing to do, and easy to find the joy in it, even when you're doing something that isn't a joyous piece. August Osage County is a very serious piece, and we were very serious, but you still want to try and find the joy in it. And I think to any situation, whether it's theater or business, even if you're going, to work at a job where you do the exact, you're making widgets every single day, I think the key to creating the atmosphere is finding the joy in it somewhere. And the creative conflict in the positive way is giving a safe space in the room that you can speak. For me, I'll say to my casts often, hey, the rehearsal isn't a place where you have to succeed. The rehearsal is a place where you get to fail with support. So
right.
make big choices, have conversations, ask those questions. At the end of the day, somebody has to be able to say, this is what we're doing. And ultimately, that's whether it's me as the director, whoever it is, it's the quote leading voice in the room. But you want to hope that you've created a nice enough atmosphere that people can say, I don't feel that. And know that they're not going to be perceived as being a diva. They're just telling you your truth. Look, Dan, ultimately, and I'm not the best choreographer director that's ever walked the face of the earth. I know that. But the best products happen because you create a room that has trust and you listen. So that if I give a piece of choreography to somebody that I think is brilliant and they can't execute it, I'm going to still look bad and it's going to still look like it's the wrong choice. Give them the voice and the opportunity to say, I don't agree with this, or I don't feel this, or even if it's in the context of a scene. Well, then find the compromise, because I think compromise is the most brilliant word ever, because everybody gets something. And if you choose to look at it the negative, then yes, everybody loses something. I never look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Compromise means that you're telling the story I want to be told, or that the choreography is doing what I want it to do for the greater picture, whatever it is, in a way that you feel confident telling the story or dancing the step or switching hats administratively fits in the budget, gives you the support that you need in order to build said set or to market said play. Because that's the dance that I'm always in, because I wear both hats.
Well, that's why I want you to talk to that a little bit, like I said, because you have a unique role there. So put on that producer hat or producing artistic director hat and think about it. What are you having to manage with your staff to make them feel that they're aware enough of how they fit in the larger process, or that this integration is happening? Because, it's not a small budget you're managing there. And you just came off of a $32 million, capital campaign program. So I don't know if people understand when they talk about arts organizations, it's definitely a business. You've got some real responsibilities to keep the lights on, and sure, you want people to come see the shows, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to make that happen.
100%. Well, to sort of stick to your theme of, creative conflict and then integration, from a creative conflict, especially from an administrative standpoint, you have to make sure that as a leader, everybody understands what it is that they're trying to do within the organization. You need to make sure they understand what theater is and what it isn't. In my case, what is the difference between nonprofit and commercial operations? Making sure that everybody that's working for the organization understands that their creative input is the face of the organization to the community. First stop is our box office, marketing, development. All of that is the way in which the theater is building its roots down into the infrastructure of our community. As you're building the arts up like a tree that is seen nationally and regionally, it needs both. You can't just keep putting on big productions if you're not securing the foundation and the base wide enough and deep enough so that the tree doesn't have an anchor. And the only way to integrate it is to make sure that the artists understand what the administrators do, and the administrators understand what the artists have to do in order to put on the show. It's a lot of education, perpetual. all the time. Um, and that's the sort of integration part of it. The creative conflict comes in, honestly, more in the administrative side than it really does in the rehearsal room, because you have a marketing department that has this idea, you have a development department that has this idea, you have a community and engagement world that has this idea, and then you have your community that doesn't work for you that has this idea. So managing proper and fair expectations of all the different pockets of opinion, let's say,
Right.
is probably the greatest challenge I have, because you know me, I never want anybody to be unhappy. But for me, the harder conversations are when it's like, yes, thank you. This is a great idea. No, we can't do that this time. We need to shift and manage this over here, because if this marketing matches up with this artistic together, that's going to allow us to do it in a way that we'll still have time and energy to do it for 5 more main stage shows, or in our case, 14 full productions for the year. So a lot of the challenges is pace, timing, and then not dishonoring anybody's opinion, because why have an arts organization and say, hey, it's an open door, come on in and tell me what you think, if I'm not willing to listen or hear what you have to say.
Oh, that's so well said, Mark. And it kind of answers my next question that I ask folks, but you might want to expand a little bit. So what about accountability? How do you hold people accountable to those visions, right? And this is a real challenge when you get in corporate settings where there's silos. You've got one department doing their thing, and they think they're executing on the mission, and they've got business objectives they're driving, but they're not talking to other people, or even at a leadership level. Like, how do you hold yourself accountable in these kind of things? Because I think leaders need that support and a deeper understanding of that.
Well, I can only talk for me.
Okay.
I offer grace. It's the corniest way to say it, but it's grace. It's always looking at the big picture, because accountability can happen in an hour. Something can happen every hour of every day that can be not serving the mission, or serving the strategic plan, or serving the artistic goals of this particular show or whatever. I feel like it's my job to look at the big picture all the time, and not just the current big picture, all of it. So when somebody isn't serving it, I have to look and go, okay, is this your typical behavior? Is this your pattern? If it's your pattern, then it's up to me to go break the pattern. If it's a negative situation.
Right.
I think the most successful times that I've been involved with is when everybody understands clearly what is the vision. And by vision, I don't mean what is the audience seeing. I mean, period. What is the vision? What is the artistic vision of the play? What is the budget expectations? What is the kindness and respect expectations? All of that. And try to look at it with grace, knowing that what we do is hard. People think that shows just happen. And there are times that people are like, hey, so it just got here, right? Where's it going next? No, we built it. We costumed it. We cast it. You've been in the room with me, dancing my face off at 400 million years old. But the accountability part, to go back to your question, changes for me with every situation. I tend to be far more lenient than I think a lot of folks are, because I am wearing the other hat, whichever other hat it is in that conversation.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I feel like it's my responsibility, and probably one of the biggest things that I carry on my shoulders is to make sure that everybody understands what fair and realistic expectations are. And if they're failing, I look at myself first. I will literally go to myself and say, what did I do wrong? What information didn't I give them? How is it that I miscommunicated this? What is it that they were operating on that I somehow, and if it isn't me, although most of the time it is me, if it isn't me, then I go, okay, what's the system of operation that has failed? Who do I talk to say, hey, here's where this is the communication breakdown? Because almost always, at least for me, it's communication. That's it. Yeah. Because if you silo, first of all, shame on you. whatever business you're in, if you silo, you might as well just know that you're going to have a broken business. Because if you try to keep these people away from these people, you will never have teamwork. And so we are always having conversations. One of the things that I will do to prevent accountability is I will meet with what I call my quote council every other week, which is all of the managers that report to me,
Mhm.
artistic and administrative, in a room together. And one of the exercises is they just go around the room saying, this is what's coming up in the next 2 weeks, or this is what's happened in the past 2 weeks, and this is why this was a challenge, so that everybody has their own accountability. Because as we're talking, we know every 2 weeks, hey, Dan, next meeting, I need you to give me the update on X. And then if the next meeting you show up and haven't given me the update, right there, you're being held accountable. Because then with the rest of your team, you're going, hey, I wasn't able to because proactively, that allows me or any of our team to say, well, then what can we do to help you? I will always say, and I think I'm not lying on this, but I will always say to somebody, first and foremost, what do you need and what support can I give you? What can the Fulton or whatever, even if I'm a guest director someplace, what do you need to do your job? That for me, from a leadership point of view, I think is the number one thing that anybody in a leadership position should build as part of the fabric of them. You are not there for you unless it's your own business. Now, if you have your own business, live if
Well,
you will.
even then, though, you have an audience you're serving. You're always serving someone. And, Mark, that's one of the many things I love about you is both your humility, but your intentionality to empower people. Because when you do that, you get the best work out of them for the enterprise, for the production, but they also feel like they're doing the best work. And they're getting farther down their own creative journey as an artist, either in the next show with you or the next place that they go. And I think I've taken that for granted over the years, because that growing up in a family business, you're hugely invested on a personal level, and then into the theater, where, like I said, we're all there to make the best product. Ideally, we want to be great, we want to be exciting, we want to excite us in doing it, but then also elicit some response from the audience. Right? The goal isn't to have them sitting on their hands. I mean, if that's happening, yikes,
Right.
we've not done what we're supposed to do. But it's just so interesting. There seems like this desire to have a safe space in corporate worlds that I've been in, but a lack of either being empowered or understanding or communication style, whatever you want to call it, for people to have productive, more creative conflict conversations. Because sure, all ideas are fine, but in the moment, some ideas have to be let go, right? Because they're not as relevant as they need to be. And then what I love about theater is that you, as the director, do get to synthesize all that. Yeah, bring me your best, but you kind of ultimately get to say, okay, we're going to set this now because we've worked through this. There's still some mystery in it in front of an audience. It's got to be spontaneous, but it's just been fascinating to me to kind of witness that. And I think I said, when people ask me what I miss about being in theater, that's what I miss: the rehearsal room, the finding the moments together, the taking chances, the safe space, the joy and the fun that comes from that. So,
Well, we're putting on plays. I mean, think about it. When we were kids, we put on plays in our garage.
right.
My garage is just really beautiful. I
Yeah,
get to play everybody else's garages. They're really beautiful. You're putting on a play. So there's something about perspective too, because that's you've worked. We've talked about accountability and integration and all those things. But let's also put this in perspective. I'm in an industry where we put on plays,
no,
and
that's
we change the community and our audiences because of it. That's the bigger responsibility part of what we do, because it isn't just, hey, I'm going to put on this play and I want it to be blah. The thing that's thrilling about the artistic industry, whether it be painters, whether it be dancers, symphony, opera, ballet, any form of the art, is there so that a human being can witness it and be changed or affected or have a conversation as a result of it. The corporate, the business side of that is the part that people don't often think about, which is, what does it take to get that painting in that window? What is the journey that artist has to go through to get this piece of whatever they are exposed? And then from an administrative standpoint, how do you get the community to know what's in the window in the first place? That's part of the fun. That's part of the joy. And that's when even my friends who are in corporate, they're like, oh my God, I've got to go to work. And I was like, well, then what's your joy? Why do you do that? If it's just to put food on your table and clothes on your children's back, then find joy in that.
Right.
Because we will ultimately be the best we can be if what we're doing is satisfying us somewhere. And that goes back to your point about opinions.
Hmm.
Because unless I'm just a tyrant, opinions are part of the process. Voices and artistic conversations make everything better without question. The reason why I think I'm really blessed in this business is because I get to hire people that are just fantastic, incredible artists, and work for incredible people, you know, or organizations like Main State, where they care about it. So you can then have a conversation and know the world will be better because something will be changed. And then instead of doing it this way, you're going to do it that way. And that's going to make the end result that much better. And yes, from a bottom line standpoint, if your audiences are motivated to get off of their hands and to cheer and lean forward and engage, then that's going to translate into telling their friends who will buy tickets, who will come to the theater, who will put clothes on my children's backs and food on my table. And my children would be all the artists I work with because I don't have kids. I used to have dogs.
No, it's beautifully said. And we could talk a long time about this. I want to respect your time today. So I'm going to jump to the last couple questions here,
Sure.
which are, as a leader, where do you feel the most vulnerable? Like when you get up in the day or you walk through your week, where are areas that you feel like, I wish I was more aware, I could do a better job, or it just kind of itches at you? And then as you look at your industry and kind of society as a whole, what are you most hopeful about, Mark? It's a polarizing time out there. Theater is a gift of bringing people together and making them think about things in a different way and building community. But just leave us with a couple of thoughts on those two questions, and I will let you jump to your next meeting, I'm sure.
Sorry, rehearsal.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think my greatest challenge is that I have a really difficult time looking. I'm going to talk about as an artistic leader like Fulton, or as a director choreographer.
Either one that you would like.
They're kind of the same. Just
Yeah, yeah,
slightly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want everybody to be happy all the time, and I want everybody in the room to have fun all the time, and I want my staff to be happy, and I want to give them everything they want to do. And there's times where I know that I need to be better about looking at what the organization or what the play or what the system needs at least equal value to what the human needs. Because there's times where I will make a change to make sure the human is taken care of when it's not necessarily the best decision for the biggest picture of what the organization might need or what the play might need, because I don't want to push somebody past a comfort zone, because I sometimes care more about people than the product, and that is a negative. It's mostly positive, but it's mostly
No,
something negative.
I think this speaks to your empathy and your desire to keep people first in the process, right? But it's good that you're aware of that, right? And that it's something you think about to try to balance. But so last question was, what are you hopeful about? You are navigating interesting times just running an arts organization, and some of the things we were talking about around casting and around interpersonal relationships and, again, communication styles. And audiences aren't getting any younger, although you are running a wildly successful regional theater and other people that you know. So what is there to be hopeful about moving forward for folks as they think about, continue to support the arts and how the arts can help us be better people in community?
So this past summer, I got the opportunity, and you saw it, to be in a room at Main State Music Theater with 8, what they called Main State Music Theater singers. And these 8 individuals are all still in college programs, and I think 2 of them had just recently graduated. And it's part of the amazing workshop, evolution experience that Main State's always had. And for a few years now, I've been feeling like our industry is dying. And if our industry is dying, and this is COVID, it's everything. It's hard. As you mentioned, audiences aren't coming back, and subscribers are down, and all those things. And I have to tell you, it was the most joyous, most wonderful thing. These 8, and I'm going to say kids because I'm old enough now to call them kids. These 8 kids just filled my hope and joy light to the max because the programs are still teaching artists. There are artists, there are youth that are still coming into our industry that still believe the way I still believe, the way I've always believed that theater is magical, and that the arts are necessary. It's very hard when you go through a pandemic and the government basically says we're shutting down all non-essential things, and you are one of the first to go. And when schools all over the country have to cut their budgets and the arts program is the first to go. These 8 kids reminded me that there is still generations behind us. And in that, they refilled my perspective. And I am very hopeful, buoyantly hopeful, that the arts are not just going to survive, they're going to thrive again because they're necessary. I don't care what anybody says. I watch people come into Something Rotten right now, which is the play we're doing. You can see them walk in on a Friday night with their shoulders down because it's crushed and they're tired and they're bent over. And I watch these same people walk out dancing out of the aisles. That's what we do. So I'm beyond hopeful that the arts will continue to change lives and that what I do still matters, because I think that the arts are necessary, and I do think that they change lives, and I'm honored to be a part of that.
Well, I'm honored to know you as a friend, and I know what you do matters, and keep doing it. And I know you will be busy for a long time and jumping right into rehearsal. So again, thank you for making some time today. Can't wait to hear what people think about this little conversation, but we'll be in touch very soon. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you for being my agent,
Okay.
and thanks for this opportunity.
Be well. Take care, Mark.
Okay, bye.